All right, thank you for joining us on 24 Plus. I'm Ruben Diaz.
And I'm Pepper Baker. We are on top of breaking news in the federal trial against a Memphis gynecologist.
Yes, Dr. Sanjeev Kumar was found guilty on 40 out of 46 charges. We want to go now to a press conference being held live right now by his attorney. Let's see if we can't listen in on that press conference as it's happening.
Here in Dr. Kumar's case is that the allegations were not that he failed to clean devices. The allegations were that the government didn't like the way he cleaned the devices. We had expert witnesses that showed that these devices were sterile, and we had one expert, Dr. Garcia, who testified that the practices that Dr. Kumar used were widely used throughout the country, even in her practice. What could happen now is Dr. Garcia could go to jail. Is any other doctor who did this could go to jail, and that's incredibly troubling for the practice of medicine if we want medicine to be adequately delivered to the people of this community.
Do you believe that Dr. Kumar received a fair trial?
I think that there are substantial issues that were present at trial. A few of them you may have seen from some of the motions that we filed. For instance, the government took a cell phone from one of their cooperating witnesses that they did not provide to the defense. That cell phone has a substantial amount of information on it that was withheld from us. And obviously we have a federal agent in this case who deleted his cell phone, something somewhat unprecedented. Special Agent Kriplian wiped a cell phone which is in violation of government policies. We don't feel like we were able to address that yet, and we will certainly do so post-trial.
What was challenging about that nitpicking that you called it? What was challenging about that in court?
Well, let me be a little bit more specific. Dr. Kumar used something called high-level disinfection, which is approved by the CDC. The government tried to put into evidence and did put into evidence disinfection protocols that would require gas sterilization. Gas sterilization is something you cannot do in a doctor's office. And so what the CDC has said is that you can do high-level disinfection. Dr. Kumar has effectively been acquitted for something the CDC says you can do. And when we tried to admit the CDC records into evidence, the judge said, those documents don't come in. We believe that when the government tells you you can do something, especially when you're a doctor, you should be able to do it.
Well, speaking of which, how do you feel about, the 6 counts where the jury was not unanimous in the decision that Dr. Kumar, that those counts will be a mistrial?
Yeah, those counts are certainly a mistrial right now. There's an open question as to 2 of them where there wasn't a unanimous decision finding him guilty on all of the dates. Here's an important part. First, those mistrial counts, we're not likely to see those result in any sort of retrial. I don't expect that. Healthcare fraud, in order to result in a conviction, needs to prove a scheme, okay? And what that doesn't mean is that we take specific procedures done by a physician and we cherry pick from a set of those procedures and then we allege that those were incorrect. This isn't the second guessing of a physician that should occur. The government must prove a scheme. And the jury's verdict here shows us that Dr. Kumar was not involved in a scheme. Why? Because they looked at thousands of procedures. They then had an expert identify 20-some patient files. From those 20-some, they chose 9. From those 9, they only got a jury to agree on a couple of them. A couple of them that were cherry-picked from a larger set. Imagine if we looked at your worst day at work in the last 10 years and we judged that over a month-long trial. What would happen in your case, right? That's what we're facing now in America.
Now, at the end of, they tried to, of course, I think they would always do that, would try to say he needs to be detained pending sentencing. The judge denied that. How are you all feeling seeing that the judge denied and let him continue out until sentencing?
Yeah, that was the right choice. I mean, the prosecution tried to claim that Dr. Kumar would be sentenced to 100 years. Congress disagrees with that statement. The federal sentencing guidelines disagree with that statement. The reality is that the offenses, while every federal offense is considered a severe offense, they would never result to that amount. And I think the judge, in saying that bond will continue, is making a decision that any judge in this country would make, and also determining that Dr. Kumar should have a chance to be able to raise some of the substantial issues that he's raised before the court, before a sentence is determined. Justice is not done yet. We're at a new phase, and we intend on asserting all of our rights.
Why do you think that jurors couldn't come to a unanimous decision on 8 of those counts?
First, sitting 5 days in a relatively warm room on a beautiful day is a tough thing to do. I'm grateful that any American citizen would be able to do that. And so I don't want to sound ungrateful at all for the jury's efforts. But the fact that it took reasonable citizens to look over 46 counts, almost 50 pages of jury instructions, and try to come up with a decision tells us that we're not dealing with the types of crimes that we used to see 20 years ago. We're dealing with allegations that are so complex and so confusing that average American citizens really struggle with them. And because of that, we feel that there's some things that may not have been completely understood by the jury. And this case, from the beginning, always should have been viewed in a different circumstance. Recall, the Board of Medicine determined that Dr. Kumar didn't do anything wrong. The people who know and are supposed to govern these types of things agree with us. And we certainly will raise that on appeal as well.
Mr. Chapman, I know you said that you guys didn't get what you wanted, and I'm not asking you to kind of speak for Dr. Chapman.
Yeah, Dr. Kumar.
But just how is he feeling right now, not just with the 40 guilty counts, but just kind of moving forward as well?
I'm sure he's happy to tell you.
Yeah, obviously feel very disappointed, but at the same time respect the process and also firmly believe that I served every patient like a family member. Never turned anybody away and did the right thing actually. Obviously the process of justice is, something that it's hard to understand. As far as science is concerned, we are confident we are on the right side of the scientific facts. And we intend to appeal and try to get the justice.
Dr.
Yep.
Kumar, again, my follow-up question to that is just kind of before the actual verdict, just what was going through your mind, because it seemed like you were kind of deep in thought. Were you overwhelmed? Like, how were you feeling in that moment?
Yeah. So obviously a lot going through my mind, it was a busy practice and, confused as to what went wrong. Always did the right thing for the patient. Patient comes in, they tell you the symptoms, and you do the best you can. And then after the fact, being analyzed in a court of law, things like that, it's obviously overwhelming.
And let me offer this really quick. It's very important to this case. A few facts are very important to this case. First, every patient consented to receiving a biopsy. If a physician is receiving a criminal punishment for accepting the will of a patient, we have real big problems in this country. Every single patient consented, and they knowingly consented. The other issue is biopsies were done in Dr. Kumar's office that we proved during trial discovered cancer. In fact, in one patient, if you would have listened to the expert witness the government called, that patient would have actually died of cancer, and it wouldn't have been uncovered. We have a very serious problem with the criminalization of healthcare in this country, and this case absolutely proves it.
You talked a little bit about Medicare fraud and having to find a scheme. I know those were some of those counts that were still up in the air. Can
Yep.
you just be clear what counts were not were still up in the air?
The specific numbers, I'd have to look them up, but there were 8 counts that the jury said they could not agree on. 2 of those counts, they agreed on some dates, but not others. There's an open question right now at the court as to those 2 counts, whether they are convictions or whether they would result in a mistrial. Our position is that for all of those healthcare fraud counts, the government had an obligation to prove that Dr. Kumar devised a scheme to get money. Now, I want to address that because Dr. Kumar only got about 8% of his total income from the practice from this type of procedure. That's very important. But in terms of everything that he did in the community, hysteroscopies were a very small part. But here's the amazing fact that was most important throughout this trial that was not allowed in. The cost of doing a procedure in the hospital is over $40,000. And the copays associated with that are very expensive. The cost of doing that procedure in Dr. Kumar's office with the appropriate equipment and the way that he cleaned it, certified by the CDC, is much, much less, resulting in very little reimbursement for a physician. Dr. Kumar saved the Medicare program hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, and this is the reward that he gets.
Given the decision that was made today, are you all, worried in the least about sentencing? Or are there some factors you would like considered?
Well, I think that we have a lot to do before we get to sentencing. We need to address some of these legal issues before we get there. But I will say that when it comes to the device counts, the cleanliness of the device counts, we feel that we'll be able to put on a sentencing case that shows the court that Dr. Kumar was doing everything that he reasonably could have done as an in-office physician to adhere to the standards of practice. But also, one thing that is never at issue in these trials and never allowed in is all of the good that a physician does for the community. I mean, you're standing right next to a gynecologic oncologist, one of few, who is one of the most highly trained in the United States, and is an expert at doing these sorts of procedures. What will happen right now is that he will not be able to practice for the foreseeable future. But the important part is here, how many lives would have been saved by Dr. Kumar? How many doctors are going to act differently seeing a case like this? And what's going to happen to the skyrocketing cancer rates in this community as a result of something like this? That's very important.
One last question for me. Do you have anything that you want to say to those people that came forward ahead of the trial and say they had concerns? Is there anything that you want to say to those people?
This big part of our closing argument was when the government wants to take a very small slice of the picture and analyze it, and then only pick the people who are a little bit more scared of government interviews and interaction, you start to get shifting stories in a case built on shifting stories. And I'm sure you all saw during trial, we had a lot of witnesses that changed their story ultimately to agree with the government's picture. What I will say is that they are put in a very difficult position. That is a tough position to be in as a witness, being called in front of a court. We appreciate those who stepped forward and did the right thing and told the truth. If there were people who didn't do that, we're going to address that in future parts of this case. I want to get to Mandy real quick. Yep.
Dr. Kumar, if I may ask, do you have any other message you'd like to share with your patients if they've been following this trial or watching tonight even? Is there just any message you'd like to get out there?
I could say a lot, but I want them to know that I always did my very best to serve them. And the risk of cancer is real. They know anytime they step foot in my office, I was always kind to them and treated them like family.
There was a doctor in this community who offers free services to patients, said that he referred hundreds, if not thousands, of patients to Dr. Kumar, and each time, each one of them was appropriately treated. This trial was not about all of those patients Dr. Kumar took care of and treated as an expert physician. This was a very, very twisted version of what we believe to be the truth about Dr. Kumar, and we look forward to continuing to bring that out. I will also mention that, as you all recall, the beginning of this case was built on one of the most significant false statements that I have seen in a case like this. Dr. Kumar was alleged to have done terrible things that were later dismissed by the court. A press release was put out with things that were demonstrably untrue. I think that had an impact. Certainly it did on the press, but that had an impact on people sitting in this courtroom in judgment of Dr. Kumar. And that's very unfortunate. We intend on addressing that as well.
So what is next for your team?
Well, we just had a bit of a roundtable to chat. I think we're going to figure out how best to approach these procedural aspects of the case. a bit more investigation and raising a few motions with the court. We feel that justice ultimately will prevail for Dr. Kumar, and we look forward to putting that case in front of the judge soon. And I think you had a question, sir?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, one of my last questions. My last question to you is, 5 days, at one point, did you kind of think that, well, or did you suspect that all these guilty verdicts would actually come after 5 days of deliberation? Because it didn't really appear that it's going to be this many guilty verdicts after 5-day deliberation.
I agree with you. Based on the way trial went, you wouldn't think that this would have been the result. But I will tell you, after doing this for a while, and as federal charges get more complex and difficult to understand, I've learned that I have no idea what's going on back in the jury room. And we know that we have the correct position. We know that we have the right facts. We hope that we were successful in convincing members of the public that those facts are accurate. If they disagree with us, we move on to the next level, right? That's just what we have to do. But there's a long line of appellate reversals in our history as a country, going all the way back to some of the most prominent cases in history. This is just going to be one of them, and that's what is in store for Dr. Kumar. He's strong enough to be able to take it, and maybe that's why this had to happen to him.
Looking back over everything, I know this wasn't the verdict you all were hoping for, but is there anything you all would have done differently throughout the trial?
Well, that's a good question. It requires me to tattle on myself a little bit, but I'll avoid doing that. I will say, and I didn't get a chance to do this earlier, but I have worked with one of the best trial teams that I've ever been with in any healthcare trial that I've been involved in. The skill and experience that Dr. Kumar personally put together to appear on this case, I feel did everything in our power to show the truth. And so I don't think that there's anything we would have done better. I'm just grateful for having been able to work with some very talented people and to fight on behalf of such a good physician.
Any last words, Mr.
Doctor, anything else?
Obviously, disappointed by the verdict, and we'll work towards appealing.
Anybody? No? All right.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
of course. I appreciate it. It was good getting to know you all. Take care.
Thank you.
All right, you have been listening to Dr. Sanjeev Kumar's attorney, Ron Chapman, as he's been kind of relaying some of the feelings after the guilty verdicts and mistrials have come out from today's jury deliberations.
Yes, a lot of language around being disappointed, but they do plan to appeal. Attorney Chapman had said that this is just the next phase of this entire process. But Kumar spoke, which was a little shocking as well. Usually the person on trial would stay a little bit behind, but he also said disappointed, but he respects the process. Served every patient like a family member. That was his words. And one point here was that we're talking about 46 charges. He was found guilty on 40 of them, and how long it took for the jury to come to that decision.
Yeah, so the partial verdict is part of that is because there were so many charges.
Right.
And because of this, Attorney Chapman referenced this a couple of times, that the charges have become more sophisticated. In fact, in one of his statements, he was kind of alluding to the fact that he felt like the charges were getting so sophisticated that maybe some of the jurors were having trouble understanding how to judge, basically how to whether to be guilty or not guilty. And that's where he felt like some of those no unanimous decision was made came from. Some of those where no verdict was made. Let's go through some of this just so we can get everybody caught up to speed. Again, Dr. Sanjeev Kumar convicted on 40 of the 46 counts. On 16 counts of reusing single-use devices, he was found guilty on all 16 of those charges.
That's right, and he was found guilty on all 16 of rebranding reused single-use devices. Now, 2 counts guilty and 2 no unanimous verdict on the 4 counts of improper handling of his stereoscopes, and then guilty on 6 counts, but no unanimous decision on the remaining 4 counts of that last one there, the 10 counts total of healthcare fraud. So that all totals to 40.
Yeah, and so his attorney, Chapman attorney, was mentioning the fact that with the healthcare fraud, he had some issues with some of those convictions on the healthcare fraud because he felt like he said that Dr. Kumar, that the prosecution had not proven that he is part of a scheme. Again, a lot of this coming from Dr. Kumar's attorney, so of course this is his side of what he feels like happened. One thing that I thought was of interest during that conversation was immediately after the verdict came out, we heard the number 100 years, that Dr. Kumar could receive up to 100 years for these convictions, but that's not accurate according to his attorney.
Right. He said that the government won't, that he won't get that, that the federal sentencing guidelines don't align with that as well. So still a lot of years to take into consideration if that is true on the government side. One thing that I thought stood out was a statement by Attorney Chapman saying, quote, worse, it's like being judged on the worst day at work in 20 years, and you're going on trial for that. So that was kind of relating, giving a little bit of a relatability of just exactly how he feels his client is being judged on. But to your point, again, about just the jury taking a lot of time with this, there were a lot of questions asked that they kept coming out to the judge within those 5 days. You also had to take into account there was a whole holiday period that happened with this as well.
And that's what I mentioned as well earlier, was that they ended deliberations on a Tuesday before New Year's, and they didn't come back until the Monday after New Year's weekend. So there were some dates in between there as well. To your point about the complexity of deliberating in this, there was 50 pages of juror instructions for this. 46 counts plus 50 pages roughly of jury instructions. That's a lot for people to go through as they're trying to figure out if the burden of proof was reached in each single count.
Right, and some of those counts had to deal with how Dr. Sanjeev Kumar was cleaning those medical instruments, and his attorney Chapman opened up this whole press conference really saying that sticking by the fact that he used high-level disinfection processes and sterilization, and really stood by that, and that it was even corroborated by other doctors and even CDC guidelines. So lots to really compile there when you hear the defense give their side of it, but a lot of it, too, was not only just how you clean the medical instruments, but it was also the procedures that come into play into these charges. But the one thing he said, too, about the counts that ended up in a mistrial, he actually said he doesn't expect those to be retried.
Yeah, and to your point, he actually mentioned 8 counts, mentioning that there were 2 of the 6 healthcare fraud convictions that were not completely done, that they couldn't agree on some of the dates. The jury couldn't. And so there was still a question on if 2 of those 6 that he was convicted on healthcare fraud, if those would actually still be convictions or if they would be added into the mistrial pile. And to your point, he did say he does not believe this, again, Attorney Chapman does not believe that those mistrial charges will be retried at any point in time. They did, in fact, point out that they will be appealing at this point in time. A lot of stuff was, according to the attorney, there was a lot of stuff they did not get in to the trial.
All right, so we've had our Desmond Nugent that has really been holding down the entire coverage on this case. We're going to go out to him live. He was there asking questions to the attorney. So, Desmond, if you can, give us a little bit more of a wrap of what you took away from Attorney Chapman and Dr. Sanjeev Kumar.
Ruben and Pepper, as you just heard, Dr. Kumar and his team, his legal team, just got finished speaking with us for about 20 to 25 minutes. And one of the things that we all were surprised is that Dr. Kumar actually spoke about how he was feeling prior to the actual verdict coming out. He was saying that he was feeling a little overwhelmed, he was kind of feeling a little anxious, and that ultimately he was just disappointed in this particular verdict, and that his team does plan to actually appeal this particular case. One of the things he also said was that, he understands that this is a judicial process and that he respects the actual decision from the jury, but again, he is very disappointed that this happened. One of the things he wanted to tell his patients, a public service announcement, is that he just tried to do the best that he could because cancer patients are a serious thing, and that he's one of the rare doctors in this area that actually specializes in what he does. And so again, you can see he was a little bit teary-eyed whenever he spoke to us just about what's to happen, but again, they do plan to appeal this particular verdict. I do know that the attorney Chapman also spoke about how if this is an indictment on Dr. Kumar, that the medical field is in serious trouble when it comes to across the globe. He said that according to the CDC, that the practices that Dr. Kumar were using were widely used across the country. So again, he's just very disappointed. They're all very disappointed in this particular verdict, and they thought after 5 days of jury deliberation that things would actually shift their way, but did not. That did not happen today. So again, they all were disappointed, but they do plan to actually appeal this particular decision today.
All right, now Desmond, don't go anywhere just yet. I know Pepper and I were just talking. We were curious. Was there any conversation about where Dr. Kumar will be while he awaits that sentencing and while they appeal? Because he's still out on bail, correct?
Yes, he is out on bond as we speak, even though the government did ask Judge Folks to take Dr. Kumar into custody until sentencing begins sometime in April, around 9:30, April 9th, if I'm not mistaken, around 9:30 in the morning. But they did not disclose as to where Dr. Kumar will be going or where he be at. They did say that he no longer will be able to practice for the foreseeable future. So again, no real details on exactly what they will be doing or what Dr. Kumar will be doing in this particular time, but Ron Chapman, his attorney, did say that they are trying to round up and come up with some ideas as to what they're going to do to move forward.
So much to come from all of this. And Desmond, talk a little bit more about the jury. Now, did any of them, were any of them able to speak to you after all of this wrapped up? But if not, can you tell us a little bit of the makeup of who made this decision tonight?
Pepper, most of the jury, the 12 juries that decided the fate of Dr. Kumar were predominantly African-American women between the ages of, I want to say, 28 or 30 to about 45 or 50. That's who most of the jury were made up as far as African-American women. I was not able to speak to any of the jury because we were trying to speak to Dr. Kumar's attorney, Ronald Chapman, at the time period, and I believe they were personally escorted into a different area because of the actual situation. So no, I was not able to speak with, I do know what they look like, but I was not able to speak with any of the jury after the actual verdict, Pepper.
All right, Desmond, thanks a lot for that report. I know that we know that you'll be back with us at 5 o'clock when our ABC 24 News at 5 o'clock starts. You got a couple minutes. I know you need to try to get some more interviews and get some more of your work done before we check back in here in just a few minutes. So thanks a lot for that great work today. All right, let's get people reset and caught back up on everything that's happened up to this point, because the jury did reach a partial verdict in this case.
That's right, on 40 charges out of 46. But let's take a look real quick about how we got here. So in February, Dr. Sanjeev Kumar was charged with enticed patients to travel to his Memphis clinic to engage in unlawful sexual activities, reusing single-use devices, rebranding reused single-use devices, and healthcare fraud.
Yeah, then in April, a judge allowed him to actually continue his practice, but there were conditions tied to that. And then all the way into October, where the sexual charges that initially he had been charged with, those were all dismissed at that point in time. And then, of course, in December, that's when the federal trial began on December the 1st. And then it, again, lasted until today, basically, when the jury finally reached their partial verdict in that case.
And it took 5 days for them to deliberate. And as we already talked about, it was just, you have to realize there's probably a lot of medical terminology in there that may not be familiar to the everyday person. So part of that played into all the questions they needed to have that they asked the judge to really come down to a decision on finding him guilty on 40 out of 46 charges.
Yeah, and so for the jury, when you're talking about those 46 charges, and you just got to think for yourself, how often do most of us deal with medical terminology on a given day, right? And so you've got 46 of those charges, plus you've got the dates included on all the healthcare fraud charges. So the terminology, the jury instructions, and then the mountain of evidence, both for both parties, for both sides, that's a lot for a jury to try to go through for 46 charges. So the fact that they were able to reach unanimous decisions on 40 out of the 46 is actually kind of astonishing.
And it's important to note that we did hear from the defense attorney, that's Dr. Kumar's trial team, but we did not hear from the prosecution. Our Desmond Nugent said that the prosecution declined to speak as well, so we didn't get that side. But our Lauren Turman did speak to a few of the victims over the time of this whole case. She spoke to one woman who gave a really touching and just kind of disturbing in a way testimony as to her experience under Kumar's care.
Yeah, and so when you're dealing with a case, with any case, obviously, and you have victims in there as well. We mentioned this earlier that sometimes it's you can lose sight of the victims because you get into the weeds of the trial itself and the charges, and so we were able to play some of the sound from one of the women who had been one of his patients. And you're right, it was very hard to listen to some of her recollection of what had happened to her. But at this point in time, now the next step becomes
The appeal.
And then given what happens on the appeal, then there will be the sentencing in April.
And what happens with the appeal could delay that sentencing
Yes.
date, which is set for April of this year.
Yeah, it'll be April 9th. Now, I know if you've just joined us or you've been watching, we are going to take a second to reset because we have to do our ABC 24 news at 5 o'clock on ABC 24. So we're going to reset real quick and then continue this coverage.
ABC 24 News starts right now with breaking news.
All right, thank you for joining us for the news at 5. I'm Pepper.